Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is REGANELITE here. Hello, everyone. Just cutting the time short because we're about to, Prime Minister's Questions about to start at any moment now. Hope you guys are all doing well, having a good Wednesday. What? Are you sure? Oh, God, why does it say... Oh no, what's happened? I update. Oh no. Do I have to end the live stream? Oh sugar, I'm in the wrong. Why is it? Oh, that's very weird. That's the wrong chat. What's going on? Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm literally going to, while I fix all this, I'm just going to switch over to this for you guys. So just bear with me.
Thames Crossing, investing £2 million for 18,000 affordable homes for working families, 60,000 young people being trained, the next generation of construction workers, and fixing millions of potholes. We're undoing a decade of stagnation, delivering jobs and opportunities for working people and securing Britain's future. Mr. Speaker, tomorrow I'll meet President Macron in Paris to discuss further our efforts to secure a lasting peace in Ukraine. And may I welcome the delegation from Bring Back Kids initiative to the gallery. The abduction of Ukrainian children is grotesque. And the UK will play our full part to bring them home. It's a stark reminder that any peace settlement must see Russia held accountable for their deplorable actions. Mr. Speaker, this morning I have meetings with ministerial colleagues and others. In addition to my duties in this House, I shall have further such meetings later today.
John Slinger.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Under this Labour government, NHS waiting lists are down 5 months in a row. Yeah. And the Hospital of St Cross in my constituency of Rugby is playing its part. But many of my constituents remain concerned about the long waits in A&E that they're experiencing, that we inherited from the Conservatives, especially those who have to travel to the General Hospital in Coventry. So will the Prime Minister set out how our plan for change to bring the NHS back into the heart of government will help us to support the front line, deliver better emergency care, closer to the community that our constituents have long called for?
Mr. Speaker, our plan for change already cut NHS waiting lists by almost 200,000. That's 5 months in a row during the winter months. The local trust waiting lists in his area are down 93%, and he's doing a great job for his community. We've already delivered 2 million extra appointments that we promised because of the record investment in the budget. The party opposite can't have it both ways. If they welcome NHS investment, they can't criticise raising the money to pay for it.
Leader of the Opposition, Kemi Questions.
Mr. Speaker, in 30 minutes, we will hear the Chancellor's emergency budget. Even the Home Secretary's husband calls it an emergency budget, as she scrambles to fix the mess she made last October. But first, let's turn to another government minister who is making a mess of her brief, the Education Secretary. Why did Labour MPs vote against banning phones in schools last week?
Prime Minister.
Because it's completely unnecessary. I've got teenage children. Almost every school bans phones in school. They do it already. We need to concentrate on what's really important here, which is getting to the content that children shouldn't be accessing. That's where I would genuinely like to work across the House, because I think there's a huge amount of work to do. But the battle is not with schools that are already banning phones in school. The battle, and this is an important emerging battle, is to work together to ensure that we can ensure that the content that children are accessing, wherever they are, is suitable for their age.
Mr. Speaker, we can look at the content, but if the ban is unnecessary, then why is it that they've started a review? Just last week, his Education Secretary called a ban a bit gimmick, Yet teachers and head teachers say the evidence already shows that schools that ban phones get better results. And he's wrong. Not all schools do this. Only 1 in 10 schools are smartphone free. So will he U-turn on this?
We need to ensure that all schools do this, but the vast majority do.
Sorry, 1 second, guys. I'll bring it back in a second. I cannot believe. Right. Okay.
Look, it is really important that we focus on the battle we have to have with mobile phones, which is the content that children are able to access. And we need to ensure that that is controlled wherever they are. So it's a question of having the right battle on the right issue, not wasting time on something where almost all schools are already banning mobile phones.
Mr. Speaker, I'm surprised that the Prime Minister would say this. His own government evidence says that phones disrupt nearly half of GCSE classes every single day. Discipline is the #1 issue in many schools. Under the Conservatives, schools became twice as likely to be good or outstanding after going through our behaviour programme. So why did the Education Secretary abolish that programme?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, she talks about the record of the last government. Under their watch, 1/3 of children started school without appropriate level development, and that is not being able to use a knife and fork. 1/4 left primary school without the required standard of reading, writing and maths, and 1 in 5 was regularly absent. That's why we're pushing up standards, more information from Ofsted, transparency for parents, more interventions where schools need it.
Mr. Speaker, he's not answering the question about discipline in schools because he doesn't care about discipline in schools. Everything he does is ideological, and his decisions are costing schools so much. The national insurance hike means every state school in the country has to pay more for teachers. The Education Secretary promised to compensate schools in full for the jobs tax. Why hasn't it happened?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, it was Labour that introduced academies. We pushed up standards. And this is not ideological. I'm a parent of 2 teenage children, both of whom go to a state school. So I'm vested in this, and it matters hugely to me. Nothing ideological about it. That is why we're driving up standards, as we always have done.
Mr. Speaker, he didn't answer the question about compensating schools for the jobs tax. That is costing schools a lot of money. The CEO of the United Learning Group says the grant that they gave is 20% short. Some schools will face shortfalls of up to 35%. Can he guarantee that no teacher will lose their job as a result of his jobs tax?
Mr. Speaker, with this government at the budget that put a record amount into our schools, just as we put a record amount into our NHS and into our public services, we were utterly failed under the last government. But yet again, she wants all the benefits, the NHS, but she can't say how she's going to pay for it. That's what got us into the mess in the first place.
Mr. Speaker, the whole House will have heard that he could not guarantee that teachers' jobs are safe. Not only is he taxing schools, he's also lowering standards. He talks about our record. I'll tell him what our record was. Under the Conservatives, English schools shot up the international league tables, while schools in Labour-run Wales, standards fell. Academy freedoms led to the biggest improvement of standards in a generation, but the Education Secretary is attacking them with her reforms. Can the Prime Minister point to any evidence at all, that these discredited academy reforms will improve school standards?
Prime Minister.
Yes, take the example of schools going into academies. The vast majority of schools are already academies. Therefore, we need to think again about what we do about failing schools that are already academies. We need to go on to the next chapter. And they never take the big decisions, and that's why we ended up their record. Open borders, which she was the cheerleader for, a crashed economy, mortgages through the roof, the NHS on its knees, hollowed out armed forces, and what have we got already under this government? 2 million extra NHS appointments, 750 50 Breakfast Club, including one in her constituency, record numbers of people being returned who shouldn't be here, and fully funded increase in defence spending. That's the difference a Labour government makes.
Chris Vince.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I recently visited Harlow College and saw the work they were doing training the bricklayers and electricians of the future. Would the Prime Minister agree with me that work that FE colleges like Harlow College do is vital for the house building that we need for future generations? And what will his government do to support Harlow's next generation?
Prime Minister.
He's a great champion for his constituents. We are investing £600 million to train up to 60,000 more skilled house builders so we can support the next generation and deliver 1.5 million new homes. We're creating technical excellence colleges and investing in Stansted Airport, creating 5,000 jobs nearby, which will create more opportunities for young people in Harlow.
Leader of Liberal Democrats, Red Davey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The British drama Adolescence has shone a much-needed spotlight on the enormous damage being done by social media to the minds of many of our young people, especially teenage boys. We've argued social media giants should be much more toughly regulated and pay more tax so we can defend our young people from this harm. We've had disturbing reports that the government is considering scrapping the digital services tax and watering down Britain's online safety legislation to appease President Trump and his co-president, Elon Musk. So will the Prime Minister today categorically rule out both of these things and make it clear that he will guarantee that British laws on tax and social media will be written in this House and not the White House?
Very well said from Ed Davey there. I really like that. Very well said. Obviously, he's not going to give that cast iron guarantee. I don't expect him to. But I'm glad that Ed Davey has called this out because we need to protect ourselves from these social media giants. And it does feel like that this Labour government are rolling back on the digital service tax and on regulations on social media because they feel pressured by the US government here.
Well, yes, of course, as he well knows. On the point he makes about online safety, it is important. There are new measures coming in the next few months, which are very important under the Act, and we need to see whether we can go further on this issue, because there are concerns as to whether they go far enough. But will the laws be made in this place? Of course they will.
Red Davey.
Well, I'm grateful for the Prime Minister's reply on the social media laws, but he didn't answer the point on the digital services tax, and we will come back to that. But moving on, Mr. Speaker, after President Trump's national security advisor accidentally added a journalist to a group chat that was discussing military action in Yemen, and given, I think, all the concerns that we share about President Trump's relationship with Vladimir Putin and J.D. Vance's insulting disdain for Britain and our armed forces, will the Prime Minister make it clear that he will order an urgent review into the security of the intelligence that we share with the United States?
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, we work with the United States on a daily basis, and I think the honourable gentleman would like to think of himself as sort of reasonable, and when he's not jumping in Windermere, quite serious. But unpicking our relations with the US on defence and security is neither responsible nor serious.
I think he could have pushed on this a little. I understand that he doesn't want to upset. I understand at this point that he doesn't want to upset America and upset in but even surely he knows behind closed doors, like right now, that things need to, that the relationship needs to change, and that I think maybe the wording and the question maybe could have been put differently, but yeah. I feel it was way too soft on Keir Starmer there. You know, what happened with regards to that WhatsApp group and Signal and whatnot. You know, that really does put British lives and British soldiers at risk. The intelligence sharing with them, it is at risk, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Medina from Lyminge in my constituency is registered blind, and she recently told me how she had been failed by the broken social security system left behind by the Conservatives. She faced great difficulties in getting support from access to work, which is essential across my Ashford constituency, and was not helped to find paid employment. It is so important that disabled people who want to work are supported to do so. What is the Prime Minister's message to Medina and others like her who have been abandoned and shut out of employment for far too long?
This is a stooge. This was a stooge question. I feel like this was a stooge question. This is to try and imply that there's not going to be harm coming to people within the benefit system, and there will be. This feels like a stooge question to me.
Every person should have the right to work, and we will always protect the most severely disabled and those with lifelong health conditions. For Medina and the 200,000 others like her who can work and want to work, we need to support them. And that's why we're investing £1 billion in personalised tailoring employment programmes and introducing the right to try work guarantee. The party opposite presided over a failed system that didn't help them and then blamed them. We will never do that.
Stephen Flynn.
Mr. Speaker, those who know me well know that I don't talk of this often, but for half of my adult life, I was physically disabled. Indeed, when I first walked through the doors of this here chamber, I did so with a crutch in my right arm to support my body weight. I know how it feels. Right now in Scotland, some 55% of children living in poverty have a member of their household who is a disabled person. So can the Prime Minister explain to me, actually no, can the Prime Minister explain to those children how the Labour Party making mum and dad poorer will lift them out of poverty?
Well, I'm grateful to him for sharing his personal experience on this and his right to do so. My family has had living with disability for many years as well, so I do understand the human element of this. We do need to give support to those that need it. We do need to help those who want to work into work, and we need to be clear that those who can work should work. In England, we inherited a failed system that couldn't be defended. But it's also failing in Scotland. 84,000 young Scots, he focuses on young people, that's 15% of young Scots not in employment, education or training. That is terrible. Almost 300,000 Scots economically inactive due to temporary or long-term illness. Now what we're doing is taking the steps to help people into work, £1 billion of employment support. They have record funding under the government, under the budget. What are they going to do to help the young Scots who have been failed by their government?
He always does this. He always does this. I mean, credit to Stephen Flynn for expressing that story, but he always does this to the SNP. Always does this.
Andrew Ranger.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Wrexham and Flintshire Investment Zone is one of the flagship examples of how when this government talks about kick-starting economic growth, it means it. This £160 million plan will breathe new life into the local economy, create 6,000 good local jobs, meaning that for young people in Wrexham, they will be able to find more opportunities on their doorstep. Will the Prime Minister join with me in welcoming this important development for North Wales and the potential it unlocks?
Yeah.
Well, it is really important that we unleash the economic potential of North Wales, including kick-starting the investment zone, backed by major businesses, Mr. Speaker, like Airbus and JCB, to leverage £1 billion of private investment, investing £975 million to benefit aerospace workers at Broughton, where I met the fantastic young workers there, and securing £1 billion investment in Shotton Mill, securing 300 jobs on Deeside. And we put a record amount of money into the Welsh Government at the budget, a budget decision which was opposed by Plaid.
Just taking pot shots at any other political party.
Julian Lewis.
Question number 3, Mr. Speaker.
Prime Minister.
The Right Honourable Member asks about shale gas. There are very real economic and environmental consequences to fracking, and communities have clearly said no.
Sir Julian.
I'm sorry, but that answer had nothing to do with my question, which was to ask why the government are ordering the permanent sealing of Britain's only 2 shale gas wells. The government is perfectly entitled on environmental grounds to not exploit such wells in normal conditions. But does he not recognise that in a desperate situation such as an international conflict where other sources of power were cut off from us, taking a decision now to concrete these things over so that a future government could not use them is an extremely irresponsible and reckless...
No, I totally agree with Sir Keir Starmer over if they are concreting over, good. We should not be touching shale gas. We should not be touching that kind of stuff. We should be pushing and renewing more towards green energy. We do not want to go back to that. And as we do not want to stick to oil and gas and our reliance on them. And his argument about what's happening right now, even if they did start drilling on it now, it won't make a shell of a difference. It won't make a difference right now. It will not decrease energy bills. And yes, I'm fully aware that our energy bills are going up, and I've been critical of this Labour government and not taking decisive action to reduce our energy bills or freeze them. But we need to invest more in green energy. We need to invest more in wind farms, more solar plant, hydropower, other renewable means of green energy that we should be relying on. That is where our focus should be. That is where investment needs to go. Yes, it's not going to be done overnight. Yes, it's going to take time. And yes, it is going to be a struggle. And at the same time, this government needs to do something about bringing down their energy bills, providing more installations to homes, switching out of our gas boilers to heat pumps. We need to go into this direction, not towards fracking, not towards shale gas, not towards more oil rigs or in the Rosebank. More investment in the Rosebank. That is the direction we need to go. That is our future there. Our future is there, not where this American administration, Trump administration, wants to take us back into the Stone Age.
He knows there are real consequences of fracking, as I've set out.
Yep.
But what we need to do to secure our independence and lower bills on the next generation of jobs is move at speed to renewable energy.
Yep.
And that's why I'm pleased there's record investment coming into renewable energy so that tyrants like Putin can't put his boot on our throat. Now, if the party opposite don't want to support that investment, they should say so.
Kemi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the Prime Minister join me in thanking colleagues from across the House and the excellent clerks and staff who have spent the last few months working on the Assisted Dying Bill Committee? And would he agree with me that if the law is to change on assisted dying, it's extremely important that it is implemented as soon as it is safe and practicable to do so?
I think I wholeheartedly agree with Kim Leadbeater here. I know there have been some criticisms towards her lately over the conduct of how some people have been silent, shall we say, over the assisted dying bill. There are still, without a doubt, questions and safeguards over the assisted dying bill as well. But of course, the most important thing is the safeguards with this. I am still in favour of the assisted dying bill. I look forward to seeing the final resolution of it before it comes to the House and reading it again to see what amendments have been changed in it. Because I believe that people should have a right to die and should be done so in the safest possible manner.
Can I congratulate all colleagues working on this bill and taking part in the debate? It is an important issue on which there are different views across the House and within parties.
Yep.
The bill is a matter for the House, but it is the government's role to ensure every piece of legislation that passes through Parliament is effective and workable. So we'll continue to work with my honourable friend as the bill sponsor to do that. In the same way, Mr. Speaker, we would for every private member's bill which passes second reading, and if Parliament chooses to pass this bill, the government will implement it in a way that is safe and practicable.
Yeah.
Bradley Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Acorns Children's Hospice provides compassionate care to very young cancer patients and their families across Bromsgrove and the villages, yet it faces a staggering £416,000 increase in national insurance contributions as a result of choices made by this government. With no exemption for hospices and no uplift in non-capital funding, this means that the charity will have to draw from charitable donations made by the public, and this will affect frontline services. This is not right. Will the Prime Minister take this opportunity to right this wrong and exempt hospices from this tax?
He should exempt hospices from this tax. I know this is coming from a Conservative mouthpiece here, but let's be very clear here. Hospices are going to suffer from this increase in national insurance, and they should be exempt from this tax.
We are investing £100 million for adult and children's hospices to improve facilities, equipment and accommodation, as well as £26 million in funding through the Children's Hospice Grant. But their cries and moaning would have a lot more value if they started their questions with an apology for crashing the economy in the first place.
Yeah, that's one thing. The only thing that I will agree with Keir Starmer on there is, while he talks a lot about investment this, investment that, it's about seeing where that investment is going, and we're not all of us are seeing that. And as for and that last point he makes about the apology, yes, we need to hear that more.
Jacob Collier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Roads in Burton, Uttoxeter and across Staffordshire are littered with potholes. Local people are forking out thousands because of the Conservatives' neglect and incompetence. And that's despite this Labour government giving Tory Staffordshire County Council £39 million to get the job done. Does the Prime Minister agree with me that the people of Staffordshire deserve better than roads with more dimples than a Staffordshire oat cake?
Prime Minister.
Look, he's right. Potholes are a real nuisance, and if you're using your car for work or your van and you hit a pothole, you're looking at a bill of several hundred pounds, which is unbudgeted for so many working families. That's why we're handing the West Midlands Combined Authority an additional £8.6 million to help repair their roads, part of a record £1.6 billion invested across the country. On top of that, Mr. Speaker, every council must now publish how many potholes they've filled, so we can show that we're making progress and that we're delivering something that didn't happen under the last government.
I've covered this already with regards to the potholes, but yes, absolutely. I do like the government's perspective on this, on dealing and tackling with the potholes, because while it may not be like something to us, it seemed like a major issue. On a local issue for basic people who drive, who use trucks or lorries and whatnot, it's a nuisance issue and one that needs to be dealt with. So it is. I wouldn't call clean up potholes a vote winner, but it would certainly make people a lot happier if they see less of them.
John Cooper.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. When he was Director of Public Prosecutions, the Right Honourable Gentleman would not, I think, have sat comfortably in the cabinet of Prime Minister Cameron. But incredibly, in Scotland, we have a situation where the head of prosecutions there, the Lord Advocate, does sit in cabinet. This has been thrown into sharp focus lately with a police probe into the finances of the SNP. It's further been thrown into sharp focus because ultimately, although not personally involved, the Lord Advocate does ultimately sit at the head of the investigation into the former First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon. She faced potential criminal charges. This situation has been created by the SNP. They will not fix it. Does it sit with this House to amend this situation?
Why is he asking this question? Why is a Conservative asking this question to give the government a reason to bash the SNP? Why is he doing this? Someone answer on a postcard, please. Just before we hear his answer, I just want to say to all those who are here in the chat, Billy Kershaw, Rosemary, DJ Marley Moo, Alistair Key, I've just seen pop there. Thank you guys all for coming along, and anybody else lurking, by the way. I do apologise for not saying hello earlier because of the little mix-up with the live stream.
Prime Minister.
Well, I'm grateful to this is a really important issue, and Labour in Scotland have been clear that they'd separate this role. That's the right thing to do for the reasons that have just been articulated. It's the obvious thing to do, and that's obviously what we do in England and Wales. Now, there have been calls for a review on this since 2021, but the SNP has not acted fast on those reviews. They really do need to bring forward proposals now to deal with the problems been sitting there for a very, very long time.
I'm not going to comment on this because I don't know this as much as the two Davies will. So I don't know if they're going to discuss it on Thursday or not, but I will let them speak more on this.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I join the Prime Minister in welcoming the delegation from Bring Back Kids, who are trying to return the tens of thousands of children abducted by Vladimir Putin, an act of pure evil? The Prime Minister will be aware that they've been working with the Yale University Humanitarian Lab, who were tracking thousands of those children inside Russia until recently. I say until recently because they've had their long-term funding removed. Will we consider using our existing contributions to the Partnership Fund for a Resilient Ukraine to restore that important work that they're doing, and in doing so restore the hope that those children can be returned to their anguished families?
Well, I'm grateful to him for emphasising this again. Russia's abduction of Ukrainian children is sickening, and I think across the House we would all agree on that. A peace settlement in Ukraine must see Russia held to account and the children reunited with their families. And in specific reference to his question, the UK is playing our full part in international efforts, including funding the Bring Kids Back initiative through the Partnership Fund for a Resilient Ukraine. And I want to reassure the whole House will do everything we can to see these children returned and reintegrated as safely and as quickly as is possible.
The reality is that not all of them are going to come back. Some of them will come back, but not all of them will, which is really, really sad to say. Because they are in Russia, there's no guarantee that they will get them back. And there's no guarantee that Russia will face repercussions because of what America is, how America is conducting itself as well, guys. Which is, you know, I want to believe it, but I have a very hard time accepting that. We are going to be behind, obviously, on the spring statement because, obviously, I want to share my thoughts as we go along, guys.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The 7-year-old adoptive daughter of my constituent Sarah suffered immense trauma in her early years. Thanks to support from the Adoption and Special Guardianship Support Fund, she's been able to access much-needed therapy that's helped her progress. But she and thousands of others don't know if they'll be able to get more help because in just 5 days, that fund ends and ministers have repeatedly refused to confirm whether it will continue. So can the Prime Minister give a cast-iron guarantee to vulnerable children, adoptive parents and kinship carers that he won't cut this fund, and so that, in Sarah's words, she can give her daughter the absolute best second chance in life she deserves?
We will set out details just as soon as we can on the basis of the principles that I set out earlier. The scheme overall, in terms of welfare, is not defendable on terms, but it must be a scheme that supports those that need it, and the details will be set out.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. While our nation was being engulfed last year by racist riots in Slough, Christians, Hindus, Jews, Sikhs, people of faith and no faith openly declared that if anybody tried to attack a mosque in our town, we'd stand in solidarity with our local Muslim community to protect it. However, since then, many have become more fearful with a rise in Islamophobic attacks, including this month at a mosque in Aberdeen. So can my right honourable friend the Prime Minister confirm to the country what steps is the government taking to tackle such hate crime and promote community cohesion so that those seeking to divide our British society are not allowed to succeed?
Well, I thank him for his question. He does great work to bring our communities together, especially in Slough. Look, any form of racial or religious-based hatred is abhorrent and has no place in society. We have set aside over £50 million to protect faith communities and freedom of worship. That's the right thing to do. It's a shame that we have to do it. And our £15 million Community Recovery Fund has been supporting communities affected by the disorder last summer. Again, the right thing to do, but it's a shame that we have to do it.
Yeah, but how much of that goes towards protecting Israel as opposed to other communities? Answers on a postcard, please.
Sir Roger Gale.
Speaker, Mr. Speaker, the problems faced by Heathrow earlier in the week have highlighted again the fact that since the closure of Manston Airport in Kent, South East lacks a major diversion facility. Now, one diversion facility would not, of course, have compensated for the closure of Heathrow, a major hub airport. But would the Prime Minister agree that with the reopening of Manston planned for October 2028, there will be a significant contribution to resilience of aviation in the South East?
Well, look, he's right to raise the concern about the situation in Heathrow. I think everybody is very concerned by what happened last week. There are clearly questions that need to be answered on a number of fronts in relation to what happened, and an investigation is ongoing. But I'm not going to announce particular parts of our policy and strategy here at this stage.
Yeah, it's too early. It's too early for the Prime Minister to say anything on it, and I have to agree with him on that.
Ring Campbell.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. In my constituency of North Ayrshire and Arran, the SNP ferry fiasco is having a devastating social and economic impact on our Drossen and the Isle of Arran. As well as building a Calmac ferry that doesn't fit into the existing harbour, the Fraser of Allender Institute estimates that the disrupted ferries cost the Isle of Arran £170,000 of lost revenue per day. Does the Prime Minister agree with me that the SNP government needs to find a rapid solution to swiftly address this serious situation?
I don't know enough about it and I can't comment on it, but it does come across like to me that it's just more SNP bashing.
I thank her for fighting SNP incompetence on behalf of her constituents. Yet again, the SNP are failing island communities. Hospital appointments are being missed and livelihoods destroyed. And Scotland has a proud history of shipbuilding and engineering. The SNP should be supporting Scottish workers and focusing on delivering for our communities.
Vicky Slade.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Camphor Magna in my constituency is proposed as a site for a new energy from waste incinerator, which will burn 260,000 tonnes of waste a year, more than the whole of Dorset's use. And I'm concerned that as we reduce our levels of waste with the brilliant new plans to recycle more, we're going to end up having to feed the monster. The area already has 95% of the capacity, so does the Prime Minister agree with me that we shouldn't allow new plants where we already have sufficient capacity, or where carbon capture is not going to be included?
Yeah. I hope she'll forgive me. The details of the particular incinerator she speaks of, I don't know the details. I'm not across that. But I will make sure that she gets an answer to her question in written form as soon as possible.
Chris MacDonald.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Can I commend my right honourable friend for his leadership on Ukraine, showing that the UK is once again at the forefront of protecting democratic freedoms? Does he agree with me that as our defence spending increases, we need to support our supply chain companies to increase their capability, creating good jobs and apprenticeships in places like Stockton North and across the country? And will he meet with me and our Teesside Defence and Innovation Cluster that I've established, which is helping to create that new defence capability for the UK?
Prime Minister.
Well, Mr Speaker, this is a once-in-a-generation moment for security of our country and our continent. We've set out that fully funded increase in defence spending to 2.5% in 2027, the biggest sustained boost since the Cold War. But that must benefit British jobs and British businesses. And that's why I'll make sure that he gets the meeting that he wants with the relevant minister.
Jerome Mayo.
In October last year, the Chancellor delivered a massive tax, borrow and spend budget. Now her plans have collapsed around her ears with an emergency budget to cut that spending. So has the time now come, Mr Speaker, for the Prime Minister to state in public that he has full confidence in the Chancellor?
What a waste of a question. Thank you for that, Chatty Rat. I do try not to speak over the MPs. I try not to because I want people to hear what they say. So thank you for that. I'm not going to speak on how other people do cover Prime Minister's questions, but I do try to be as fair as I can. Waste to energy plants, if built in the right place, i.e. high density urban areas, provide community hot water, says Chatty Rat.
I have full confidence in the Chancellor. Thank you.
Complete and total waste of a time of a question.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. Albion Rovers has been a football institution in Coatbridge since 1882. However, following relegation and the lack of financial support for teams leaving professional leagues, it now faces a deeply perilous situation, risking the very future of one of Scotland's oldest football clubs. Does my right honourable friend agree that clubs like Albion Rovers are integral to the fabric of our communities? And will he join me in encouraging all parties to be solution-focused on this matter and encourage football authorities to strengthen our clubs in the lower leagues to help protect their future?
More needs to be done to protect lower football clubs. More needs to be done. This really, I cannot stress this enough. We have to protect teams that are not in the Football League, that not always have a big financial donor, a decent financial backing behind them, and it shouldn't always just come from the communities and people out of pocket. It should be coming from the Football Association. There's huge amounts of football in the game. More of that money needs to literally trickle down to the other clubs.
Well, he's a superb local champion, and regardless of which club any of us support, they share a love of the game, and they are at the heart of our communities, and Albion Rovers is exactly that, a huge point of local pride, and I'd encourage all efforts to secure the future of the club.
Final question, Dr Kieran Muller.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. We're joined in Parliament today by Katie Brett, whose 16-year-old sister Sasha was raped and stabbed to death. Aisha Hussein, whose cousin Jan, was killed by a sex offender and stored her body in a freezer. Paula Hudgell, whose adopted son Tony lost his lower legs as a result of child cruelty, and Becky and Glenn Ewins, whose daughter Violet Grace was killed by a hit-and-run driver who spent barely more time in prison than she was alive. Supporting them are Jeremy and Susan Everard, who received justice for the murder of their daughter, Sarah, but who know too many others do not. They've come together to say with one voice that it's time for us to start ensuring sentences truly deliver justice for victims and their families.
Yeah.
Would the Prime Minister agree to meeting with them in future to hear their stories firsthand?
Any stories like these are obviously absolutely horrible, and obviously the case of Sarah Everard was one that was brought up, what was blown up because of the horrific incident. But any case is absolutely horrific. I do hope the Prime Minister, I don't know what his answer is, but I do hope the Prime Minister does agree to meet with them, and more is done to protect the women in society, and those held accountable face the toughest of sanctions under the law.
Well, can I thank him for raising this issue? The courage of these campaigners after simply appalling cases is astounding, and I find it humbling. I'm pleased the Minister for Victims will be meeting the group, I think, today, and I look forward to meeting them in the future, because we must prioritise victims and make sure sentences punish offenders and protect the public. So thank him for raising this really important set of cases.
Yeah. That completes Prime Minister's questions with that front bench changeover.
Right, while it just quickly does that, I'm going to pull it a bit forward because obviously it's about to... Right, so just before I play, I just want to say quickly on Prime Minister's questions. It was their mixed bag and whatnot, but this is really what we're all here to hear, is what the spring statement. So let's listen to what the Chancellor has to say.
Mr Speaker, this Labour government was elected to bring change to our country, to provide security for working people, and to deliver a decade of national renewal. That work began in July, and I am proud of what we have delivered in just 9 months. Restoring stability to our public finances, giving the Bank of England the foundation to cut interest rates 3 times since the general election, rebuilding our public services with record investment in our NHS.
You're going to hear a lot of waffling, guys, so I'm just warning you now.
Bringing waiting lists down for 5 months in a row. And increasing the national living wage to give 3 million people a pay rise from next week. Now our task is to secure Britain's future in a world that is changing before our eyes. The threat facing our continent was transformed when Putin invaded Ukraine. It has since escalated further, and they continue to evolve rapidly. At the same time, the global economy has become more uncertain, bringing insecurity at home as trading patterns become more unstable and borrowing costs rise for many major economies. Mr Speaker, the job of a responsible government is not simply to watch this change. This moment demands an active government, a government not stepping back, but stepping up. A government on the side of working people, helping Britain to reach its potential. And Mr Speaker, we have the strength to do just that. As one of the world's largest economies, an ally to trading partners across the globe, and a hub for global innovation. These strengths and the progress that we have made so far mean that we can act quickly and decisively in a more uncertain world to secure Britain's future and to deliver prosperity for working people. Mr. Speaker, as I set out at the budget last year, I am today returning to the House to provide an update on our public finances, supported by a new forecast from the Independent Office for Budget Responsibility. Ahead of a full spending review in June, I will then return to the House in the autumn to deliver a budget in line with our commitment to deliver just one major fiscal event a year. So let me now turn to the OBR's forecasts. And I want to thank Richard Hughes and his team for their dedicated work. The increased global uncertainty has had two consequences. First, on our public finances, and second, on our economy. I will take each in turn. In the autumn, I set out our new fiscal rules that would guide this government. These fiscal rules are non-negotiable. They are the embodiment of this government's unwavering commitment to bring stability to our economy and to ensure security for working people. Because the British people have seen what happens when a government borrows beyond their means.
I did warn you guys there was going to be a lot of waffling. I did warn you guys ahead of time. It's not going to get to the point, Alistair Keir. It's going to be like this for a bit, so I do apologise.
The mini-budget delivered by the party opposite resulted in higher bills, in higher rents and higher mortgages. And, Mr. Speaker, it was not the wealthy who suffered most when they crushed the economy. It was ordinary working people. And they continue to feel the effects, 2.5 years later, of the damage that the party opposite did. Now, let me be clear. There is nothing progressive, there is nothing Labour about working people paying the price for economic irresponsibility. The British people put their trust in this Labour government because they knew that I would never take risks with the public finances.
No, we voted for you because we were sick and tired of 14 years of Conservatives. We didn't vote for you because we wanted you. Let's be very clear about that.
That we would never do anything to put household finances in danger. And we must earn that trust every single day. The two rules that I set out at the budget were first, our stability rule, which ensures that public spending is under control, balancing the current budget by 2029-30, so that day-to-day spending is met by tax receipts. Second, our investment rule, to drive growth in the economy, ensuring that net financial debt falls by the end of the forecast period, while enabling us to invest alongside business. Turning first to the stability rule, the OBR's forecast shows that before the steps that I will take in this statement, the current budget would have been in deficit by £4.1 billion in 2029-30, having been in surplus by £9.9 billion in the autumn, as the UK, alongside our international peers like France and Germany, has seen the cost of borrowing rise during this period of heightened uncertainty in global markets. As a result of the steps that I am taking today, I can confirm that I have restored in full our headroom against the stability rule, moving from a deficit of £36.1 billion in 2025-26 and £13.4 billion in 2026-27 to a surplus of £6.0 billion in 27-28, £7.1 billion in 2028-29 and a surplus of £9.9 billion in 2029-30. That compares to the headroom left by the previous government of just £6.5 billion. That means we are continuing to meet the stability rule 2 years early, building resilience to shocks in this, a more uncertain world. The OBR forecast that the investment rule is also met 2 years early, with net financial debt of 82.9% of GDP in 25-26 and 83.5% in 26-27, before falling to 83.4% in 27-28, in 83.2% in 2028-29, and then to 82.7% in 2029-30, providing headroom of £15.1 billion in the final year of the forecast, broadly unchanged from the autumn. After the last government doubled the national debt, after they doubled the national debt, debt interest payments now stand at £105.2 billion this year. Mr. Speaker, that is more than we allocate to defence, the Home Office and the Ministry of Justice combined. That is the legacy of the party opposite. So the responsible choice is to reduce our levels of debt and borrowing in the years ahead. So that
this is what George Osborne talked about. You remember him talking about cutting the debt? This definitely sounds a lot like Conservative.
we can spend more on the priorities of working people, and that is exactly what this government will do. Mr. Speaker, I said that our fiscal rules were non-negotiable, and I meant it. I will always deliver economic stability, and I will always put working people first. I said it at the election, I said it at the budget, and I say it again today. Let me now set out the steps that the government has taken. At the budget, we protected working people by keeping our promise not to raise their rates of national insurance, income tax or VAT.
I am so sick of the waffle in the background. I sometimes it's infuriating because I cannot always clearly hear what she is saying. It's so... I wish MPs on both sides of the House would just shut up and let me hear clearly what she is saying. It really is frustrating.
At the same time, we began to rebuild our public services after the party opposite left a £22 billion black hole in our public finances.
Shut the fuck up about that.
Ours were the right choices. The right choices for stability and the right choices for renewal, funded by the decisions that we took on tax. As I promised in the autumn, this statement does not contain any further tax increases. But when working people are paying their taxes while still struggling with the cost of living, it cannot be right that others are still evading what they rightly owe in tax.
Yeah, so we should be knowing who exactly should be paying more, but...
In the budget, I delivered the most ambitious package of measures that we have ever seen to cut down on tax evasion, raising £6.5 billion per year by the end of the forecast. Today, I go further, continuing our investment in cutting-edge technology, investing in the HMRC's capacity to crack down on tax avoidance, and setting out plans to increase the number of tax fraudsters charged every year by 20%. These changes raise a further £1 billion, taking the total revenue raised from reducing tax evasion under this Labour government to £7.5 billion.
That's good. I actually agree with that because we have a lot of tax dodgers in the UK. So, but it should be the wealthiest who are the biggest tax dodgers, not the... Yes, we do have them in other income levels, but we know where the most of the money is.
These figures are verified by the Office for Budget Responsibility, and I want to thank my honourable friend, the Exchequer Secretary, for his continued work in this area. Mr. Speaker, last week my right honourable friend, the Secretary of State for Work and Pensions, set out this government's plans to reform the welfare system. The Labour Party is the party of work. We believe that if you can work, you should work. But if you can't work, you should be properly supported.
Yes.
This government inherited a broken system. More than 1,000 people every day are qualifying for personal independence payments. 1 in 8 young people are not in employment, education or training. If we do nothing, we are writing off an entire generation. That cannot be right, and we will not stand for it. It is a waste of their potential, and it is a waste of their futures, and we will change it. As my right honourable friend said in her statement last week, the final costings would be subject to the OBR's assessment. Today, the OBR have said that they estimate that the package will save £4.8 billion in the welfare budget, reflecting their judgments on behavioural effects and wider factors. This also reflects final adjustments to the overall package, consistent with the Secretary of State's statement last week and the Government's Pathways to Work Green Paper. The Universal Credit Standard Allowance will increase from £92 per week in 25-26 to £106 a week by 29-30, while the Universal Credit Health element will be cut for new claimants by around 50% and then frozen. On top of this, we are investing £1 billion to provide guaranteed, personalised employment support to help people back into work, and £400 million to support the Department for Work and Pensions and our job centres to deliver these changes effectively and fairly, taking total savings after that to the package to £3.4 billion. While spending on disability and sickness benefits will continue to rise, these plans mean that welfare spending as a share of GDP will fall between 2026 and the end of the forecast period, very different to what we inherited from the party opposite. We are reforming our welfare system, making it more sustainable, protecting the most vulnerable, and most importantly, supporting more people back into secure work, lifting them out of poverty. Mr. Speaker, at the budget, I fixed the foundations of our economy to deliver on the promise of change. That work has already begun. 2 million extra appointments in our NHS. Waiting lists down. New breakfast clubs opening across England. The largest settlements in real terms for Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland in the history of devolution. Asylum costs falling, promises made, promises kept, and every single one of them opposed by the parties opposite. At the budget, alongside providing an increase in funding for this year and next, I set the envelope for the spending review, which we will deliver in June, led by my right honourable friend, the Chief Secretary to the Treasury, to set departmental budgets until 28-29 for day-to-day spending and until 2029-30 for capital spending. Today, I'm reflecting two steps that we have taken on our spending plans. First, because we are living in an uncertain world, as the Prime Minister has set out, we will increase defence spending to 2.5% of GDP, reducing overseas aid to 0.3% of gross national income. This means we save £2.6 billion in day-to-day spending in 2029-30 to fund our more capital-intensive defence commitments. Second, in recent months, we have begun to fundamentally reform the British state, driving efficiency and productivity across government to deliver tangible savings and improve services across our country. Earlier this the Prime Minister set out plans to abolish the arm's-length body NHS England and ensure that that money goes directly to improving the service for patients. My right honourable friend, the Health Secretary, is driving forward vital reforms to increase NHS productivity, bearing down on costly agency spend to save money so that we can improve patient care. And my right honourable friend, the Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, is taking forward work to significantly reduce the costs of running government by 15%, worth £2 billion by the end of the decade. This work shows that we can make our state leaner and more agile, delivering more resources to the front line, while ensuring that we control day-to-day spending to meet our fiscal rules. Today, I build on that work by bringing forward £3.25 billion of investment to deliver the reforms that our public services need through a new transformation fund. That is money brought forward now to bring down the costs of running government by the end of the forecast period, by making public services more efficient, more productive and more focused on the user. I can confirm today the first allocations from this fund, including funding for voluntary exit schemes to reduce the size of the civil service, pioneering AI tools to modernise the state, investment in top technology for the Ministry of Justice to deliver probation services more effectively.
Cut civil servants and more use of artificial intelligence. But we kind of expected this.
And upfront investment so we can support more children into foster care to give them the best possible start in life and reduce cost pressures in the future. Our work to make government leaner, more productive and more efficient will help deliver a further £3.5 billion of day-to-day savings by 2029-30. Overall, day-to-day spending will be reduced by £6.1 billion in 2029-30, and it will now grow by an average of 1.2% a year above inflation, compared to 1.3% in the autumn. Mr. Speaker, I can confirm to the House that day-to-day spending will increase in real terms above inflation in every single year of the forecast. And in the spending review, apart from the reductions in overseas aid, day-to-day spending across government has been fully protected. I can also confirm our approach to capital investment. In the autumn budget, I announced £100 billion of additional capital spending to crowd in investment from the private sector, to fix our crumbling infrastructure, and to create jobs in every corner of our country. Today, I am not cutting capital spending, as the party opposite did time and time again, because that choked off growth and it left our school roofs literally crumbling. That was the wrong choice. It was the irresponsible choice. It was the Tory choice. Today, I am instead increasing capital spending by an average of £2 billion per year compared with the autumn, to drive growth in our economy and to deliver in full our vital commitments on defence. This government will ensure that every pound we spend will deliver for the British people by increasing productivity, driving growth in our economy and improving our frontline public services. Mr. Speaker, let me turn now to the impact of increased uncertainty on our economy. To deliver economic stability, we must work closely with the Bank of England, supporting the Independent Monetary Policy Committee to meet their 2% inflation target. There have been 3 interest rate cuts since the general election, and today's data showed that inflation fell in February. Having peaked at 11% under the previous government, the OBR forecast that CPI inflation will average 3.2% this year before falling rapidly to 2.1% in 2026 and meeting the 2% target from 2027 onwards, giving families and businesses the security that they need and providing our economy with the stable platform it needs to grow. Mr. Speaker, earlier this month, the OECD downgraded this year's growth forecast for every G7 economy, including the UK. And the OBR have today revised down our growth forecast for 2025, from 2% in the autumn to 1% today. I am not satisfied with these numbers, and that is why we on this side of the House are serious about taking the action needed to grow our economy.
Well, so far we've not seen it, so what are you doing about it?
Backing the builders, not the blockers, with a third runway at Heathrow Airport.
Heathrow is not your goddamn solution. That's something that is a 10-year project that's not going to guarantee investment.
And the Planning and Infrastructure Bill. Increasing investment with reforms to our pension system and a new National Wealth Fund. And tearing down regulatory barriers in every sector of our economy. That is a serious plan for growth. That is a serious plan to improve living standards. That is a serious plan to renew our country.
Yeah, it still won't deal with the cost of living crisis.
Mr. Speaker, a changing world presents challenges, but it also presents new opportunities for new jobs and new contracts in our world-class defence industrial centres, from Belfast to Deeside and from Plymouth to Rosyth. In February, the Prime Minister set out our government's commitment to increase spending on defence to 2.5% of GDP from April 2027, the biggest sustained increase in defence spending since the end of the Cold War, with an ambition to spend 3% of GDP on defence in the next Parliament. That was the right decision in a more insecure world, putting an extra £6.4 billion into defence spending by 2027. But we have to move quickly in this changing world, and that starts with investment. So today I can confirm that I will provide an additional £2.2 billion for the Ministry of Defence in the next financial year, a further down payment on our plans to deliver 2.5% of GDP by 2027. This additional investment is not just about increasing our national security, but increasing our economic security too. As defence spending rises, I want the whole country to feel its benefits. So I will now set out the immediate steps that we are taking to boost Britain's defence industry and to make the UK a defence industrial superpower. We will spend a minimum of 10% of the Ministry of Defence's equipment budget on new novel technologies, including drones and AI-enabled technology, driving forward advanced manufacturing production in places like Glasgow, in Derby and in Newport, creating demand for highly skilled engineers and scientists, and delivering new business opportunities for UK tech firms and startups. We will establish a protected budget of £400 million within the Ministry of Defence, a budget that will rise over time for UK defence innovation, with a clear mandate to bring innovative technology to the front line at speed. And we will reform our broken defence procurement system, making it quicker, more agile and more streamlined, and giving small businesses across the UK better access to Ministry of Defence contracts, something welcomed by the Federation of Small Businesses. We will take forward our plan for Barrow, a town at the heart of our nuclear security, working with my honourable friend, the member for Barrow and Furness, and providing £200 million, supporting the creation of thousands of jobs there. We will regenerate Portsmouth Naval Base, securing its future, as called for by my honourable friend, the member for Portsmouth South. We will secure better homes for thousands of military families, the homes that they deserve denied to them by the previous government. Homes for our military families in constituencies of my honourable friends for Plymouth Moorview, Plymouth Sutton and Devonport, York Outer and in Aldershot. That is the difference that this Labour government is making.
Still not dealing with the what about the cost of living crisis? We keep talking on about defence. We don't actually have any actual defence on our island, do we?
Finally, Mr. Speaker, we will provide £2 billion of increased capacity for UK export finance to provide loans for overseas buyers of UK defence goods and services, because I want to do more with our defence budget so we can buy and make and sell things here in Britain. Giving further opportunities for our world-leading defence companies and those who work in them to grow and create jobs here in Britain as military spending rightly increases all across Europe. To oversee all of this vital work, my right honourable friend, the Defence Secretary, and I will establish a new Defence Growth Board to maximise the benefits from every pound of taxpayers' money that we spend. And we will put defence at the heart of our modern industrial strategy to drive innovation that can deliver huge benefits back into the British economy. Mr. Speaker, that is how we make our country a defence industrial superpower. So the skills of the future, the jobs of the future and the opportunities of the future can be found right here in the United Kingdom. Mr. Speaker, as the previous government learned to their detriment, there are no shortcuts to economic growth. It will take long-term decisions. It will take hard yards. It will take time for the reforms that we are introducing to be felt in the everyday economy. It is right that the Office for Budget Responsibility consider the evidence and look carefully at measures before recognising a growth impact in their forecast. But, Mr. Speaker, I can announce to the House that the OBR have considered and have scored one of the central planks of our plan for growth. In my first week as Chancellor, I announced that we were pursuing the most ambitious set of planning reforms in decades to get Britain building again. And in December, we published changes to the National Planning Policy Framework, driven forward tirelessly by my right honourable friend, the Deputy Prime Minister. Reintroducing mandatory housing targets and bringing grey belt land into scope. The OBR have today concluded that these reforms will permanently increase the level of real GDP by 0.2% in 29-30, an additional £6.8 billion for our economy.
And how much of the green land of nature is going to be affected by this? Answers on a postcard, please.
And by 0.4% of GDP within 10 years, an additional £15.1 billion in our British economy. Mr. Speaker, that is the biggest positive growth impact that the OBR have ever reflected in their forecast for a policy with no fiscal cost. And taken together with our plans to increase capital spending that we set out in the budget last year, this government's policies will increase the level of real GDP by 0.6% in the next 10 years. Mr. Speaker, that is the difference that this Labour government is making. Policies to grow our economy. Promises by a Labour government, delivered by a Labour government, opposed by the parties opposite. Mr. Speaker, the planning system that we inherited was far too slow. The OBR have concluded that our reforms will lead to house building reaching a 40-year high. 305,000 homes a year by the end of the forecast period. And changes to the National Planning Policy Framework alone will help build over 1.3 million homes in the UK over the next 5 years, taking us within touching distance of delivering our manifesto promise to build 1.5 million homes in England in this Parliament.
I was just about to say, aren't you 200,000 homes short of meeting your target there, Chancellor?
Homes promised by this Labour government, homes built by this Labour government, homes opposed by the parties opposite.
But are they homes that we can live in, or homes that are too expensive for the ordinary people? Answers on a postcard, please.
The impact on our economy goes further still. I said at the election that we could not simply tax and spend our way to prosperity. We need economic growth. So I can today confirm that the effect of our growth policies, including our planning reforms, means an additional £3.4 billion to support our public finances and our public services by 2029-30. The proceeds of growth, promised by this Labour government, delivered by this Labour government, opposed by the parties opposite. Mr. Speaker, earlier this week, we provided an additional £2 billion of investment in social and affordable homes next year, delivering up to 18,000 new homes and allowing local areas to bid for new development across our country, including sites in Thanet, in Sunderland and in Swindon. More security for families across our country, promised by this Labour government, delivered by this Labour government and opposed by the parties opposite. And to build these new homes, we need people with the right skills. Earlier this week, my right honourable friend, the Education Secretary, announced more than £600 million to train up 60,000 more construction workers, including with 10 new technical excellence colleges across every region of our country, giving working people the chance to fulfil their potential. New opportunities for our young people, promised by this Labour government, delivered by this Labour government, opposed by the parties opposite.
Getting a pattern here with this one.
Mr. Speaker, all this is just the start. The Planning and Infrastructure Bill passed its second reading on Monday. No thanks to the parties opposite. Once this bill completes its passage, it will help deliver the homes and infrastructure our country badly needs. And I say to the parties opposite, the British people will be watching. Because if the parties opposite don't support these reforms, let us be clear about what that means. They are opposing economic growth.
No, it's not that. They want safeguarding to make sure that they don't have carte blanche here to destroy everything and everything for homes.
They are opposing more homes for families. They are opposing good jobs across our country. We on this side are clear about whose side we are on. The parties opposite must decide too.
This is basically her saying that if this bill doesn't pass and we don't deliver our homes, it's not the government's fault. It's not the manifesto. It's not because it's a manifesto pledge that we couldn't keep it. It's because opposition parties stopped us from doing so. And this is Rachel Reeves foreshadowing, saying that if we don't deliver, it's not our fault. It's someone else. This is basically what this language is.
This Labour government is taking the right decisions now to secure Britain's future. And today I can confirm to the House that the OBR have upgraded their growth forecast next year and every single year thereafter. With GDP growth of 1.9% in 2026, of 1.8% in 2027, 1.7% in 2028, and 1.8% in 2029. Mr. Speaker, by the end of the forecast, our economy is larger compared to the OBR's forecast at the time of the budget. That is the difference that this Labour government is making. But, Mr. Speaker, this isn't just about lines on a graph. It's about improving people's lives. Working people are still feeling the pinch after a cost of living crisis caused by the party opposite.
We are still in a cost of living crisis. No, it's not. We are just recovering from a cost of living crisis. We are still in it. Get your facts straight on that.
That caused interest rates and inflation to go through the roof. So I am pleased that the OBR confirmed today that real household disposable income will now grow this year at almost twice the rate expected in the autumn. Compared to the forecast in the final budget delivered by the party opposite, and after taking into account inflation, the OBR say today that people will be, on average, over £500 a year better off under this Labour government.
We'll see about that. I'm very sceptical about that because, well, yes, she's saying here that people will have more money in their pockets. Yeah, they're claiming that more people will have more money in their pockets. Well, we will see over time if that really is the case, because when you see headlines of energy bills going up, your water bills are going up, your council tax is going up, the cost of travel is going up. These things are hurting people as well. So while it's all well and good saying that, well and good stating this, are people really better off? Like, is the minimum wage really beating all these hikes? And my honest answer is I don't believe it is. But I'm not an expert in economics. But like I said, people need to feel it. She's saying here that there are people that this is what's going to happen. But whether people feel that is another thing.
That will mean more money in the pockets of working people.
Let's be specific here, working people. But whether or not they will feel it or not is a question. Because if more money is in working people, people should spend more. But whether they will or not is another thing. So I am taking this with a pinch of salt. I know this is coming from the Chancellor, but I am taking it with a pinch of salt. But if it is true, and I will say this, if it is true, and people are better off as a result of what Labour is doing, of what this Chancellor is doing, I will commend the Chancellor and this government for it. I really will. Because one thing I do want is people to be better off. I really, really want people to be better off. I really, really do.
Higher living standards promised by this Labour government, delivered by this Labour government, opposed by the parties opposite. opposite. Mr. Speaker, the world is changing. We can see that and we can feel it. A changing world demands a government that is on the side of working people, acting in their interest, acting in the national interest, not retreating from challenges, not stepping back, but a government with the courage to step up.
So why don't you step up and call? Why don't your government step up and call out Israel? Oh no, we can't do that. Why don't you step up and call out what the Trump administration are doing? Oh wait, we can't do that.
To secure Britain's future and to seize the opportunities that are out there before us. I am impatient for change. The British people are impatient for change.
So why don't you undo Brexit and bring us back into the European Union? Oh wait, we can't do that. Or maybe she's saying something regarding it.
After 14 years of failure. And we are beginning to see change happen. Our plan for change is working. Defence spending is rising. Waiting lists are falling. Wages are up. Interest rates are cut. That is the difference that this Labour government is making. And today, Mr. Speaker, the OBR confirm that our plan to get Britain building will drive growth in our economy and put more money in people's pockets. There are no quick fixes, but we have taken the right choices, returning stability to our economy after years of mismanagement by the party opposite, delivering security for our country and security for working people. That is what drives this government. That is what drives me as Chancellor. That is what drives the choices that I have set out today, and I commend this statement to the House.
Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride.
Mr. Speaker, at the last budget, the Right Honourable Lady said that she would bring stability to the public finances. Stability to the public finances. But this statement, more appropriately referred to as an emergency budget, has brought her to a cold, hard...
Can I just say to you, quite rightly I want to hear to the Chancellor. I know I want to hear the Shadow Chancellor. I don't need any help.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This emergency budget, Mr. Speaker, has brought the Right Honourable Lady to a cold, hard reckoning. She has become very fond recently to talk about the world having changed. Well, indeed it has, Mr. Speaker. This country was growing at the fastest rate in the G7 only about a year ago.
Oh dear. Yes, guys, we are going to endorse ourselves with the Shadow Chancellor, I know. But it is still important that we hear the other side of the spectrum on this. I have to be fair, guys. So I could understand if you want to run away from this.
Exactly. And just as the OECD and the Bank of England and other forecasters, and now we learn today, the OBR have stated, growth has been halved in this year, cut in two as a consequence of the decisions and the choices that the Right Honourable Lady made on her watch. Inflation, which was down to 2%, bang on target on the very day of the last general election under a Conservative government. We are now told this year will be running at twice the level as was forecast under ourselves in 2024. This is going to mean prices bearing down on households and on businesses right across the country because of her choices. And the OBR also says, Mr. Speaker, that unemployment will be rising this year and next year and the year after. And in fact, across the forecast period, it will not decline at all. So much for the Right Honourable Lady's back-to-work plans. And we have already seen, Mr. Speaker, what it means when it comes to controlling borrowing under this Chancellor. And yes, she has come forward now with a plan to squeeze spending later on in the forecast period. And she has, of course, told the OBR that these are the elements of spending restraint to which she will stick. But what do the markets think? And could I ask the Right Honourable Lady, given her track record, given the fact that she has failed to control spending and borrowing to date, what does she think the markets are going to make of her latest promises? But the Right Honourable Lady, Mr. Speaker, says, of course, that none of this is her fault. It is the war in Ukraine. It is President Trump. It is tariffs. It is President Putin. It is the Conservatives. It is her legacy. It is anybody but her.
I'm sorry, but you've got to own up for your mistakes, and you guys have still, to this day, refused to own up for your mistakes. Okay, I'm just going to put that on the record.
Well, what the British people know, Mr. Speaker, is that this is a consequence of her choices. She is the architect of her own misfortune. It was the Right Honourable Lady, Mr. Speaker, who talked down the economy, so that business surveys and confidence crashed through the floor. It was the Right Honourable Lady who confected the £22 billion black hole. A smokescreen that was only ever there in order to cover up for the fact that she and the Prime Minister reneged on their promises to the British people during the last general election.
We honestly don't know for sure, but we know that the Conservatives left a mess. So I don't know if it really is that the black hole thing was real or not. But I'm not gonna agree with Mel Stride saying it was made up, because knowing what we know about the Conservatives and what they have done, I would not be surprised if at all it was true.
And a black hole that the OBR themselves, ironically at the government's behest, have said they will not legitimise. She chose to be reckless with a sliver of headroom against her fiddled targets. She borrowed and spent and taxed like it was the 1970s. Little wonder, Mr. Speaker, that the Chancellor has tanked the economy. Little wonder we have an emergency budget, all because of her choices. Now, the Chancellor likes to tour the television studios and tell everybody they should be thankful that she will not be ramping up taxes in this emergency budget as she did before. But that will be cold comfort to the millions up and down the country waiting in fear and trepidation for the start of the new tax year. Buckling under the burden of tax that will be rising to the highest tax burden on her watch in the history of our country.
Didn't they make it life difficult, for us as well? Just saying.
And so could I ask the Right Honourable Lady if, when she replies in a moment, she will give that much-needed reassurance, particularly to businesses, that she will not be ramping up taxes still further in the autumn. Even a basic economist, Mr. Speaker, knows that if you tax something, you get less of it. You don't need to have worked at the Bank of England for 10 years, Mr. Speaker, to know that. So what did the Chancellor tax? She taxed jobs and wealth creation. She's destroyed livelihoods, businesses clobbered, big and small companies, the backbone of our economy. Enterprise crushed on the altar of her ineptitude. The CIPD telling us a third of those businesses affected will shed labour. Morrison's losing 200 jobs, Tesco 400, Sainsbury's 3,000 jobs lost. No wonder the Federation of Small Business say that outside of the pandemic, business confidence has been left at its lowest level on record.
That's pretty bad. That is a pretty bad statement, regardless of the fact that this is Mel Stride, guys. You can't argue what he just said there. That is bad.
But it's not just businesses, Mr. Speaker. It's charities, it's GPs, it's pharmacists, it's those who transport children who have special educational needs, and it is hospices caring for the sick and the dying. In this House, Mr. Speaker, the Labour Party had the opportunity yesterday and last week to stop that. But they voted our amendments down. And we will never let their constituents forget it. Mr. Speaker, if you ramp up taxes, if you ramp up borrowing and spending without any commensurate improvement in productivity, it leads to growing inflation.
Yeah, that's exactly what you guys did. Let's just again put that on the record.
And inflation has been increasing on this government's watch. It means that interest rates stay higher for longer. The Chancellor just now trumpeted the fact that there had been 3 interest rate cuts since the Labour Party came to office. She knows full well there should have been more than that had she managed. She knows full well. She knows full well. She knows full well, Mr. Speaker. She knows full well that interest rates are higher for longer because of the choices that she took. And this has led, Mr. Speaker, to servicing costs for our national debt, which is running at twice the defence budget. And today we have learned from the OBR that debt interest is to increase still further. None of this money, Mr. Speaker, is going to be spent on public services. It will be going down the drain. Mr. Speaker, the real black hole, Mr. Speaker, the real black hole is not the one the Chancellor invented, it is the one the Chancellor created. It's not a central problem, Mr. Speaker, the fact that this Chancellor is a gambler. Even with her fiddled fiscal targets, she left way too little headroom. Way too little headroom. And is not the truth that whilst the Right Honourable Lady said at the last budget that that was a once-in-a-Parliament reset, she rolled the dice on a wafer-thin margin, and she lost. Reckless with her fingers crossed, she fiddled the targets and she missed them.
I'm not sure about the language we use. I think there are better words and more constructive words the Shadow Chancellor would prefer to use.
Can I just point out, thank you, Mr. Can I just point out that all of her fiscal headroom disappeared, not just some of it. In fact, she went underwater to the tune of £4.1 billion. Mr. Speaker, reeling from one fiscal event to the next is not a way to run the public finances. And breaking your fiscal rules to the extent that the Right Honourable Lady has in just 6 months is a public humiliation. Mr. Speaker, could I briefly focus on defence spending? We on this side of the House welcome the fact that, as we press the government to do, they will reach 2.5% of GDP by 2027.
Of course they're going to side with the Labour when it comes to defence. Of course they agree with it. Of course they bloody are. You just knew they were going to bloody say that.
And we note the stepping stone along the way that the Right Honourable Lady has just announced. But we should go further than that. The 3% target should be brought forward to this Parliament. So,
yeah, because, you know, we have money at the back of the couch that we can use for defence, because we obviously don't have money in the back of the couch, you know, for the poorest in society, you know.
Can I ask the Right Honourable Lady, given the geopolitical tensions that she has raised, what provision has she made in her headroom, in her fiscal plans, for increasing defence spending more quickly in this Parliament if that proves necessary? And could I ask her, would she scrap the absurd Chagos deal and put that money behind our armed forces? Mr. Speaker, the economy is in a perilous state, but there was a different way. There were different choices on taxing and spending and borrowing and on productivity and on welfare. And let me just say a few words on welfare. It was the privilege of my life, Mr. Speaker, to have served as the Secretary of State for Work and Pensions. And when it came to welfare reform, with that privilege came a deep responsibility. The responsibility for welfare reform to be properly thought through with a very clear plan. So I know they don't like it because it's an alien idea, Mr. Speaker, to the party opposite. So that we can be fair to the taxpayer, but equally fair to the many people up and down our country, some of whom are highly vulnerable. This was an approach on our watch that led to $5 billion of savings across the forecast period and 450,000 fewer people going on to long-term sickness and disability benefits as a direct consequence. And we would have gone further, much further, and we set out a clear plan, we set out a clear plan in our manifesto to do exactly that. But the party opposite rushed their changes. They had no plan. There was not a single mention of PIP, personal independence payments, in the Labour Party manifesto.
True.
When they got into office, they pussyfooted around and dithered. Why? Because it's deeply divisive within their rank and file. And then suddenly, when the Chancellor decided that she had run out of money, out the word went to find some savings in welfare, to scrabble around, to yank every lever possible. And the spectacle, frankly, Mr. Speaker, of what the OBR has said about the changes that were only announced last week by the Secretary of State for Work and Pensions is simply shambolic. Yes. We have gone from incompetence, Mr. Speaker, to chaos. There have been more changes in this policy than there were at the last minute to the profile of the Right Honourable Lady on LinkedIn. The result is the worst of all worlds, a wholly inadequate level of savings on welfare, with welfare costs still spiralling ever higher, and changes that were likely to harm many vulnerable people. So could I ask the Right Honourable Lady, when the Secretary of State for Work and Pensions came to the House last week with these changes, she did not provide an impact assessment. Was this because the OBR had not signed off the numbers? Was it because the department did not have enough time to produce one? Or was it only provided today, as many of us suspect, because this was thought to be a good time to bury bad news? Mr. Speaker, the forecast for growth is down, for borrowing costs is up, for inflation is up, and business confidence has been smashed in a million pieces. This Chancellor constantly trying to blame forces beyond her control. The right response is not to duck responsibility, but to build a resilient economy.
You mean the responsibility that your party has still yet to take on over 14 years of what you have left the entire UK state in, and it still refuses to apologise for? You've got some nerve talking about responsibility, little man, and I really do mean little man.
The Right Honourable Lady would have us believe that that is what she is doing. But how can we believe this Chancellor? How can we trust this Chancellor? She is the Chancellor who said she would not increase borrowing, but she did. She said she wouldn't change her fiscal rules, but she did. She said she wouldn't put up national insurance, but she did. She said she wouldn't cut winter fuel payment, but she did. She said she wouldn't tax farmers, but she did. And she said she would not move to more than one fiscal event a year, and she just has. And now we are all paying the price of her broken promises. Today's numbers confirm it. We are poorer and we are weaker. To govern, Mr. Speaker, is to choose. And this Chancellor has made all the wrong choices.
Chancellor of the Exchequer.
OK, well, I know that the Chancellor hasn't been in this role, Sarah Chancellor hasn't been in this role for very long, but I mean, at least he's not misquoting Shakespeare today. If this was a budget, then it would be the Leader of the Opposition responding. Now, I'm glad that she's still in her place. I know that she'll want to get back to her office for a lunchtime steak soon. But the Right Honourable Gentleman, he talks about budgets. Let me remind the party opposite that the only emergency budget we have seen in recent years was in response to the party's disastrous mini-budget. A mini mini budget that crushed the economy, sent mortgage bills spiralling and left a £22 billion black hole in our nation's finances. Now, they might have forgotten about the damage that they did to our country, but the British people never will. But as always, the Shadow Chancellor talked a lot, but he didn't offer a single alternative.
True.
He says he opposes our tax rises, but he can't tell us whether he would cut the NHS to reverse them. He says he wants economic growth, but they abstained on the very planning reforms that the OBR have said will kickstart growth. Now, Mr. Speaker, you don't change the country by abstaining, by sitting on the fence. You change the country by leading, by taking action, and that is what this government are doing. And Mr. Speaker, he says he wants businesses to trade, but he doesn't want us to talk to the second largest economy in the world, or indeed our biggest trading partners in the European Union. He simply isn't serious. 4 months into the job and he's got no clue. He wants to talk about growth, but he doesn't say anything about the fact that the OBR has upgraded growth next year and every single year after. He talks about pensioners, but he forgets that it's his party to scrap the triple lock, which we are protecting, and which will mean the state pension rising next month by over £400. And Mr. Speaker, he talks about wages, but he forgets the fact that we are boosting wages by boosting the national living wage from next month. And Mr. Speaker, the Shadow Chancellor says nothing about living standards or this morning's fall in inflation, because the last Parliament was the worst on record, and the OBR today have revised up their forecast for family finances. Mr. Speaker, working people are always better off with Labour. Now, he is learning something, because at least this time he's asked a couple of questions, so let me respond to them. He asked what should the markets make. Well, what the market should see is that when I've been tested with a deterioration in the headroom, we have restored that headroom in full. That is the choices that I made. And he says that it's a slither of a headroom. Well, it's 50% more headroom than I inherited from the party opposite. When I was left with a slither of headroom, I rebuilt it after last government eroded it. That is the difference that we've made. And whilst they left the public finances and the public services a mess, we wiped the slate clean, which means we have the flexibility now to increase defence spending, as we have done in as the leader of the Labour Party has done. The party opposite had 14 years to increase defence spending, and now they lately come to the party. And the Shadow Chancellor mentions welfare reform and his time at the Department for Work and Pensions. What a legacy. 1 in 8 young people not in education, employment or training. 1,000 people a day going on to personal independence payments. And the OBR say today that welfare spending as a share of GDP will now start falling, a far cry from what we had under the party opposite. And, Mr. Speaker, the Shadow Chancellor speaks about employment. Well, the OBR say that employment will increase, that wages will increase and that living standards will increase. What a change after 14 years of the Conservative Party.
So Mel Stride literally just said unemployment will go up by the OBR, and now she's saying that employment will go up by the OBR. Which is it? Someone's selling porky pies there. I swear I'm not going mad.
Well, the world is changing, and no one can be in any doubt about it. But the Conservative Party are stuck in the past, divided, out of touch and carping from the sidelines. They have no plan to kickstart growth, no plan to fix our public services, no plan to keep our country safe. The only plan for change they are working on is to change their party leader, and you can't blame them for that. So if they have no plan, let me remind them about ours. The minimum wage up, real wages up, house building up, NHS investment up, investment in our schools up, investment in our roads up, defence spending up. Every single one of those policies opposed by the party opposite. Opposed by the Conservatives, opposed by Reform, opposed by the SNP, opposed by the Liberal Democrats and opposed by the Greens. Mr. Speaker, it's the anti-growth coalition in action.
Wow, you bitch. I'm sorry. You go try to smear all of them the same Wow. Fuck you, Rachel. Seriously. That okay. You could call say whatever you want about the Conservatives because they left us in this mess, but to smear the Greens, the SNP, and the Liberals in the same mud, that's just disgusting. I'm sorry.
They are the blockers, we are the builders, securing Britain's future, protecting working people and delivering change.
Chair of the Finance Committee, Dame Meg Hillier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker.
Right, these are just, I believe these are all just a bunch of, let me just hold on. These are just a bunch of questions from to the Chancellor here. I am going to listen to some of these questions because I do think they are important. So we are going to continue to go forward. But if you guys still want to stick with me, you're more than welcome to do so. I did say this was going to be a long live stream. That's why, hence, I went for my walk this morning. And I also had my lunch before this as well. So if you guys want to continue to stick with me, you're more than welcome to do so. Because I do think, just hearing some different viewpoints is very important. I just saw there on the scroll bar, we also hear from Daisy Cooper as well. So if you do decide to stick with me to the end of this, thank you very much. But obviously, if you've heard enough and you just want to come back later at 8 p.m. when I do the Snowflake Watch, you're more than welcome to join me later on for that, guys. So let's hear what some of the because this is going to be, it's just a couple of questions there. I see Daisy Cooper's going to be talking as well there, as well as one or two other people as well.
My right honourable friend inherited a very difficult challenge when she became Chancellor of the Exchequer last July. And she is absolutely right that the books need to balance. This is not other people's money we're spending, but taxpayers' money hard earned by our constituents. And she is right to be tough as Chancellor on this. We look forward to quizzing her at the Treasury Select Committee next week. I'm sure she's looking forward to it as much as we are. Mr. Speaker, the Chancellor announced an extra £2 billion a year in capital spending, and she talked about extra defence spending. Can she give some more detail about where she hopes that £2 billion a year extra will go?
Yes, definitely. Chancellor.
I thank my honourable friend for that question, and I indeed look forward to attending the Treasury Select Committee next week. I was pleased to have served on the Treasury Select Committee in the past, and it's a pleasure to give evidence to you. We will set out in the spending review, my right honourable friend, the Chief Secretary, will set out in the spending review the allocation of the additional capital money, but I was able to announce today £2.2 billion into defence from next year, as well as £2 billion as a down payment to build the affordable and social housing that we need. Two examples of the priorities of this government to get Britain building and to secure our national security.
Liberal Democrat spokesperson Daisy Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The people of this country are crying out for change, but they feel they're just getting more of the same. Of course, it was the Conservative Party that wrecked the public finances, but we are 8 months into the new government, and people are left wondering, where is the change that was promised? The Chancellor says that the world is changing, so why won't she change course with it? The Chancellor said she wanted a dash for growth, but with her national insurance jobs tax, she shot herself in the foot before she even crossed the start line. After the government's disastrous budget, the government had the chance today to change direction, to fix our finances, to kickstart growth and deliver a small business budget. The government could have scrapped the jobs tax, which will hammer our high streets, and instead ask the big banks, the social media giants and the online gambling companies to pay their fair share instead. And the government could have changed its approach to trade, launching talks to boost growth with a new trading deal with our European neighbours. Instead, the government has made the wrong decisions to cut public services, hit disabled people and inflict more pain on our small businesses and high streets. In doing so, they have delivered no change and almost no growth at all. After years of Conservative mismanagement, people can see just how broken our public services are. They can't see a GP, they can't see a dentist, they're fighting for an education plan, and they are picking up the pieces of a broken social care system. Everything is broken. Nothing works. That is why people are impatient for the change that they were promised. We have to bring the welfare bill down and support more people into work. It's right for people and our economy. But cutting support for someone who needs help getting dressed and washed in the morning isn't just wrong. It does absolutely nothing to support that person into work. And if anything, it does the exact opposite. It will also have knock-on impacts for the entitlements of their family carers too. So will the Chancellor come clean about this? If the government is serious about cutting welfare spending, it must get serious about fixing health and social care. Yes. So will the Chancellor speed up the social care review and ensure that it concludes no later than the end of this year? Yeah. And in her quest to slim down the civil service, I wonder why the Chancellor has not looked at the mountain of red tape created by the last government's terrible trade deal with Europe. A whopping 2 billion extra pieces of paper have had to be completed by businesses since Brexit, enough to wrap around the world 15 times. If we manage to cut the red tape, we can give British businesses a tailwind. We can deliver far more growth than is currently predicted. We can increase the fiscal headroom to deal with global headwinds, and we can free up precious time and money in our civil service. That would be real change. Madam Deputy Speaker, business was promised change too, and today's statement should have been a small business budget. We Liberal Democrats have repeatedly raised the alarm about the impending damage from the National Insurance Jobs Tax, the bigger business rates bills, and changes to reliefs for family farms and family businesses. These changes will be a hammer blow to small and family businesses, leaving communities facing the prospect of an epidemic of boarded-up shop fronts. And there'll be a hammer blow to community health and care providers who stop our NHS from falling over. This isn't the change that was promised. So instead, I say again, the Chancellor should look again at much fairer ways to raise the tax revenue our public services desperately need, by reforming capital gains tax more fairly and asking the big banks, the social media giants and the online gambling companies to pay their fair share.
Hear, hear.
I know that the Chancellor must contend with President Trump's trade war, which is causing global economic turmoil. But our response to Trump's bullying cannot be to cower in the corner and just hope that he's nice to us. We cannot sit on our hands whilst British steel is hit with Trump's tariffs. We Liberal Democrats warmly welcome the Chancellor's move to raise defence spending to 2.5% of GDP. But instead of cutting the aid budget, which abandons the world's poor and damages our soft power, she should instead be covering the cost by raising the digital services tax, handing the tab to Elon Musk and Trump's other billionaire backers. At the very least, Madam Deputy Speaker, can the Chancellor categorically rule out any reduction in the tech tax in an attempt to appease the White House, especially when disabled people in Britain face eye-watering cuts? To conclude, Madam Deputy Speaker, I have a series of questions. Will the Chancellor recognise that cutting public services that are already stretched is a false economy? Will she accept that trying to bring down the welfare bill without fixing health and social care is a road to nowhere? Will she listen to the warnings from small and family businesses that her jobs tax will do more harm than good? Will she look at the fairer ways of raising revenue that we Liberal Democrats have put forward? And will she take the bold action we need to grow our economy by rebuilding our broken trading relationship with Europe? Madam Deputy Speaker, the public were promised change. Where on earth is it?
Very good by Daisy Cooper. Absolutely great respect for her. You know, it's like, I know it's not a very popular party, the Liberal Democrats, but we've seen, like, ever since the general election, like, I really have taken a liking to Daisy Cooper. She comes across so authentic and very passionate about what she talks about. And I thought this was very good. This is a very good speech on this issue, on some of the most important issues there. And yeah, she was absolutely brilliant. Just quickly on Alistair Keir, like I said, I've already got a plan of what it's going to be. It's not going to be a paper review. Okay, it's not going to be that. I'm not going to do a paper review because Damon Guinness does a sort of that anyway, and also Graham Hughes does that as well as other people. I have already decided what it's going to be. You're just going to have to wait until Monday morning at 8 a.m. to see what it is.
Chancellor.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Honourable Lady says, where is the change? Well, let me tell her. More money into our NHS with 2 million additional appointments and waiting lists falling 5 months in a row. We're rolling out breakfast clubs in primary schools from April this year. We're increasing defence spending to protect us in a more uncertain world. Additional support for carers, a living wage up, the Employment Rights Bill, and so much more. That is the difference we've made in 9 months, and we've only just got started. Yeah. Now, the Honourable Lady talks about trade. Well, we believe in free trade. We are a small, open trading economy, and we benefit with trade links around the world, including with our single biggest trading partner, the United States of America. And it is right that we work with our allies in the United States to ensure that that free and open trade continues. That is in our national interest, and this government will always act in our national interest.
So why not look at the deal that we have, the screw up deal that we had with the Boris Johnson? Why are we not looking at that deal?
At the same time, there is going to be a summit, as the Honourable Lady knows, between the UK and the EU in May, where we look to reset our relationship so that we can see more free trade and the better flow of trade, especially for our smaller businesses to be able to export around Europe. Now, the Honourable Lady talks about welfare. Well, the Honourable Lady has not admitted that there is a single problem in the welfare system as it exists today. Now, I'm not willing, this party is not willing, to write off 1 in 8 young people who are not in education, employment or training. It's why, for example, we have just announced this week with my right honourable friend, the Education Secretary, an additional 60,000 training places to train people up in the construction industries of the future.
You can't get disabled people who are in these capacities into the construction industry. There may be tiny exemptions. My God, what an incredibly poor link. How can you link the two? Oh my God. Wow. Wow. Really? Really? After what she just said?
And a £1 billion package of personalised targeted support, because there are many disabled people, and the Honourable Lady knows this, who are desperate to work but aren't getting the support, were denied the support by the last government. And that's why we have said that there will be additional support for the most sick and disabled, and that personal support for getting people back into work. And that
they have said this time and time again. And like I said, look, I don't want to see anyone lose their payments. But at the same time, if they are getting more people into work, well, we will see whether more people are off benefits into work over time. But at the same time, like we need to see this. And I understand that things take time as well. But we need to see that difference. And I feel like, yeah, how much longer are we going to wait before we start seeing the benefits? I understand we need to get more people off work into work. I respect that opinion. I really, really do. But the way this is coming across just does not feel right to me.
That is the right approach, so that we have protections for those who need it, work for those who can, and a sustainable system that is here for generations into the future. But I do want to take on the main point that the Honourable Lady makes, because the Honourable Lady wants all the money for public services, but she doesn't want to raise the taxes to pay for them.
She just literally said the ways to do it. You muppet! She literally just said it in her speech. She said the ways you could raise the money. She literally said that. She literally said that. Did you not just listen to what she said?
The tax, at the moment we spend £105 billion a year on interest on government debt. And it seems that the Honourable Lady would just like more of that debt. She says you can't see a GP, you can't see a dentist. Well, Madam Deputy Speaker, how does the Honourable Lady, how do the parties opposite think that you pay for those things?
The Chancellor is absolutely ignorant here and just trying to make a fool out of Daisy Cooper here. Because we've listened to both sides of this, to what Daisy has just said and what the Chancellor is saying here. If you listen to both, you will think the Chancellor's off her head here.
You can't object to the tax increases and support the money that we've invested in our public services. And to say otherwise, I'm afraid, is fairy tales and the magic money tree. It just does not add up. The difference on this side of the House is that we will put money into our public services, explain where it comes from, and ensure that the public finances are on a firm footing. And that is the difference between our party and the parties opposite.
Yeah, sorry, yeah, that is right. She does have a script that she has to stick to, that is true.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Young people in my constituency, indeed across the country, have had an incredibly difficult time growing up. Austerity saw their further education budgets cut by 14%, then a pandemic, now war in Europe. So can the Chancellor please set out how her plans to get Britain building again will help my constituents, my young constituents, get the good non-graduate jobs they need in Loughborough, Shepshed and the villages?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And the honourable member, my honourable friend, speaks powerfully on behalf of his constituents in Loughborough. The additional homes, the 1.5 million homes that this government is building, will ensure that families in Loughborough have a chance of getting on the housing ladder, and young people in Loughborough will
I am going to speed up this process, guys, just for reference.
have the opportunities to help build those homes. That is the difference that we are making. More jobs, paying decent wages, more homes for our families.
Glenn. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I hope that the Chancellor next Wednesday in front of the Treasury Select Committee will reiterate her commitment not to come back with more tax increases. But could I turn to the OBR page 5, 1.2, where it says, while the government's planning reforms deliver a modest boost to the level of potential output of 0.2% in 2029, its cumulative growth between 2023 to 2029 is still half a percentage point lower than we projected in October. And the level of productivity is 1% lower. I'd like to know what the Chancellor thinks about that, and can she confirm that the Employment Rights Bill has not been evaluated by the OBR?
No worries, Alistair. Thanks for popping in. Appreciate it. Hopefully, I'll see you tonight on the live stream.
Well, the key point that the right honourable gentleman says there is that from 2023 to the end of the forecast, cumulative growth is lower. But of course, this government didn't come into power in 2023. We came into power in July 2024. And what the OBR numbers show, that the economy is bigger because of the changes that we've made. It's just a difference of the dates. I look forward to coming to the Select Committee next week, and I'm sure I'll take more questions from the honourable gentleman then.
Yuan Yang. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Chancellor has rightly championed economic stability, in stark contrast to the previous government, indeed in stark contrast to the previous 5 Chancellors. Yet, as she has said, the world is becoming more unstable, and that global instability feeds through to rapid changes in official projections, which can constrain our room for action. Can the Chancellor reaffirm to us that despite these challenges, she will keep her focus on fiscal stability to meet the long-term missions of this government, to defend our country, to improve living standards, and to protect the most vulnerable in our society? Chancellor.
Thank you. My honourable friend is absolutely right that her constituents, all of our constituents, depend on economic stability. It ensures they know how much they're going to pay on their rent and their mortgages. It ensures that they're not caught out when they go to the shops by prices constantly rising. And that's why, as a government, we've said to grow our economy, the number one thing that we need to achieve is economic stability. And that's why I'm so pleased that the Bank of England have been able to cut interest rates 3 times since the general election, and also that the OBR forecast that inflation will fall rapidly to 2.1% next year and then 2% in the years after that.
Dr. Caroline Johnson.
Madam Deputy Speaker, schools face imminently a huge rise in costs due to the rise in national insurance contributions, and they had been reassured by the government that head teachers have been reassured that the schools will be recompensed with money to cover the national insurance costs. Yet Sir Robert Patterson School in my constituency, a great school, finds itself £33,000 short. Will the Chancellor commit to ensuring that Sir Robert Patterson, and indeed all the schools in my constituency, are given enough money to cover her jobs tax?
Well, public services, including schools, have been compensated for the increase in national insurance. And I'm happy for the honourable lady to get in touch with me or the Education Secretary to set out the case of that school. But the only reason we've been able to put record investment into our schools is because the stability we've returned to our economy, including the tax increases that we had to bring forward last year to provide that extra money for our public services, including schools, in the honourable lady's constituency.
Debbie Abrahams.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And I recognise the difficulties that my right honourable friend is facing in terms of fiscal challenges and so on. That she inherited, and also support the reforms that my right honourable friend, the Work and Pension Secretary, has set out. But all the evidence is pointing to the fact that the cuts to health and disability benefits will lead to increased poverty, including severe poverty, and worsened health conditions as well. So how will making people sicker and poorer help in terms of driving our economy up and then people into jobs.
Chancellor.
Well, as my honourable friend knows, in the Green Paper we're consulting on a premium payment for the most severely sick and disabled, because as a government we believe that those people who need support should get it. But like the honourable lady, I recognise that there are many people who are sick and disabled. There are many young people who could be working but were written off by the previous government, and that's why we're putting record investment in helping get those people back to work with guaranteed, personalised and targeted support. And you are half as likely to be in poverty if you are working, if you move from welfare into work, and we're determined to lift people out of poverty by ensuring that there are good jobs, paying decent wages, with the security that's guaranteed through the Employment Rights Bill.
You just had the Labour MP there emphasising that many people will be worse off as a result. But of course, she's still going to be sticking to her scripted lines. I'm more interested in some of the questions rather than the Chancellor's answers, because the Chancellor will just be giving the same scripted answers at this point, guys.
The OBR have said that the package of welfare cuts, the information they received was late, with insufficient detail, and the estimates are highly uncertain. They're saying they're now going to have to certify them in the next forecast. So can the Chancellor confirm whether that means that the government have to go further with even deeper cuts to welfare than they've announced so far today?
Chancellor. Well, what the OBR have done is they haven't taken into account any of the package of measures to get people back into work, or looked at any behavioural effects of people making that switch into work. And what they've said in that document is that they're now going to spend the summer looking at the entirety of the package, including the efforts that we are making with a huge package to get people back into work. I'm confident that that personalised, targeted support will get more people into work, lift them out of poverty so they can support their families, and so as an economy we can benefit from their contribution.
Rachel Maskell.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Fiscal responsibility, unlike with the last administration, ensures that people are paying less and it keeps the cost of living down. However, as a Labour Party, we've got an additional responsibility around having social responsibility. So can we look at those DWP changes again? Of course, protecting the most vulnerable, but it's those people just above that bound which are set to lose, and we're really worried about those.
Chancellor.
I thank my honourable friend for that question, and I share the deep concern, all of us on this side of the House. In fact, I think everyone in this chamber shares the concern about the most sick and disabled who need support, which is why in the Green Paper we're consulting on an additional premium payment to the most severely disabled, but also, instead of writing people off and not providing the support they need to do a job that matches their abilities and their needs, that we're giving that personalised target support. And I was in a job centre in my own constituency in Pudsey last week, where there are amazing stories of work coaches helping people into work who are far from the labour market. We want to see more of that to lift people out of poverty, to help them achieve their potential.
Dame Harriet Baldwin.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. At the general election, the Chancellor promised growth and no increase in taxes. But as Chancellor, she has delivered no growth and a record increase in taxes. And now the Office for Budget Responsibility is halving her growth forecast this year, cumulatively 0.5% less over the forecast period. And more worryingly, they are also forecasting a 1% reduction over 1% reduction in productivity growth. Why does she think that is?
Chancellor.
I've got a huge respect for the honourable lady, but that question doesn't do her justice. As I said to the right honourable gentleman earlier, yes, if you start in 2023, cumulative growth is lower, but the general election didn't take place in 2023. It took place in 2024. The economy is bigger at the end of this Parliament than the OBR forecast previously. Those are the numbers, those are the facts. That's the difference that this Labour government are making.
Ruth Cadbury.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'd also like to congratulate the Chancellor on her excellent statement, which addresses the challenge the last government left her with. Madam Deputy Speaker, to drive growth across the UK, new heavy and light rail infrastructure is badly needed. So what work is the Chancellor doing to develop new models of funding in order to deliver these important projects?
Chancellor.
I thank my honourable friend for that question. And one of the reasons that we've put an additional £13 billion into capital spending over the forecast period is that we can then invest in the infrastructure that our country needs, including in transport infrastructure, which I know the honourable lady, as chair of the Select Committee, has a keen interest in. And she's absolutely right that we do need to look more at how we can leverage in private sector funding for a whole range of projects, including the Lower Thames Crossing.
Chris Coughlin.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And I'd like to declare an interest as an alumni of London Business School. The Chancellor recalled on the Treasury Committee in November that I asked her to look at a specific London Business School paper on using defence spending, specific public R&D on defence spending to boost economic growth. I was delighted to hear that the Treasury did evaluate that specific paper by Professor Paolo Saruco as part of the spring statement and has listened to me and the Liberal Democrats. So does the Chancellor agree with me that using defence spending focused on public R&D can be one way not only to keep us safe but also to raise productivity and boost economic growth?
Chancellor.
I thank the honourable gentleman for that question, and I look forward to taking more questions from him at the Select Committee next week. When I've been to visit defence companies or met our armed forces, they tell me about the amazing ability that new technology and innovation has to help them do their jobs better in keeping our country safe. And so as we invest more in defence and get to that 2.5% of GDP, it is absolutely right, as I've set out today, that more of that money is used for innovation, R&D and new technologies.
Zubair Ahmed.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I congratulate my very honourable friend on grasping the challenges and the opportunities that this new world presents us. Opportunities that will mean that in my constituency of Glasgow South West there will be more investment into the defence sector. And Madam Deputy Speaker, that is timely, because after 18 years of SNP government, 1 in 6 people in my constituency are economically inactive. Will my right honourable friend agree with me this investment will finally raise their ambitions and raise their pay packets?
Chancellor.
Seems like a wasted question. It's getting to a point where a lot of these questions are really a waste of time, guys.
Well, unlike the SNP, the Labour Party supports investment and jobs in the defence sector in Scotland that support people in Glasgow and South West and in many other parts of Scotland. More good jobs for young people, more jobs paying decent wages, keeping our country safe. That's what this party believes in. It's a shame the SNP believe in something entirely different.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. A cloud hangs over the economy in northern Lincolnshire at the moment, with the potential for significant job losses at the Scunthorpe Steelworks. In view of that, could the Chancellor give an assurance that funding will be available not only to look after any redundant workers, but also to attract new business and retraining for existing workers?
Chancellor.
At the general election, we set out our plan for a steel fund as part of the National Wealth Fund. I absolutely understand the concern of the honourable member and other honourable members in the House about the future of the steel industry in this country. We were able to improve the deal for Tata to protect more jobs in South Wales. We want to have a thriving steel sector right across the UK, and we'll continue to work with the company and with the trade unions there to achieve just that.
Guys, I'm going to take one more. I'm going to take just maybe 1 or 2 more questions, and then I'm going to wrap it up, guys, because this may go on for quite a while. So we'll probably just take 1 or 2 more questions, and then I'm going to just give my final thoughts, guys.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Making cuts instead of taxing wealth is a political choice, and taking away the personal independence payments from so many disabled people is an especially cruel choice. A disabled person who can't cut up their own food without assistance, and can't go to the toilet without assistance, and can't wash themselves without assistance will lose their personal independence payment. So hasn't the government on this taking the easy option of cutting support for disabled people, rather than the braver option, which would be to tax the wealthiest through a wealth tax?
He's been very I can't remember the MP's name, but I've seen him several times speaking on the right sides of this issue, yeah, he's one of the few Labour MPs that speaks a bit of truth to power here, and he understands what's happening here.
Madam Deputy Speaker, there is nothing progressive, there is nothing Labour about not supporting people who are disabled and sick and young people to do jobs that are commensurate with what they are able to do. And 1 in 8
Yeah, and you just completely ignore the question, stick to the script.
Young people have been effectively written off by the party opposite, and we're not willing to leave them in that position. And we are consulting in the Green Paper on an additional premium to pay to the most sick and disabled, because we recognise that people need support from the state. But too many people are not given the opportunities to fulfil their potential, and we're not willing to carry on like that. In the budget last year, we got rid of the non-dom tax status, we increased capital gains tax, we introduced VAT on private schools, and we changed the rules of inheritance tax. So I don't recognise what the honourable gentleman says.
Of course he doesn't. Guys, I'm going to skip a bit forward because someone who is standing up and is going to ask a question is the MP for Clacton. I've just seen pop up here. So we're going to jump a little bit forward here.
And contributing to the wider economy.
Nigel Farage.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Would the Chancellor agree that measuring growth and relative wealth by GDP is not the most relevant number to our constituents? Because we're living in an age of mass immigration and a rising population, it is GDP per capita, surely, that matters to our constituents, and that has fallen consistently for the last 2 years, and is falling still. And shouldn't we tell people, actually, they are getting poorer?
Well, the OBR forecast that GDP per capita will increase by 5.6% during the course of this Parliament, having fallen under the previous government. So if he ever gets to Clacton, he can tell his constituents that.
I just wanted to play that one. There was one from one of the from another MP as well. But I'm not going to play anymore, guys, because this is going to go on for ages. And obviously, I wanted to take a couple of questions on, and I'm glad we got a few there. Right. So, what are my final thoughts on the spring statement before I go? As Max said last night on his live stream, it wasn't going to be that long. And yes, it wasn't a budget, and obviously we have to wait till autumn for the budget. So that's we have to wait for that. The thing that struck a nerve with me, and I'm going to wait a bit closer, because obviously there's also the impact assessment that's going to come out today as well, which may already be out, so that needs to be looked at as well. But some of the changes that's going to be made in there, from what we've heard, is very concerning indeed. We do obviously want to get more people back into work. I do agree that we need to get more people back into work. I've said that numerous times, and I'm sure you guys agree with me on that. As for the defence, like, you keep talking about defence, but they're missing one of the fundamental things. They say there was nothing in that about how to encourage more people to join the army, to join the special forces, to join the British Navy, the Royal Air Force. Like, what are we doing to encourage those people into those jobs? That's something that wasn't really talked about there as well. A lot of it is all talk about more weapons, more drones, more AI stuff there. Do I feel better off? No. Do I think that she knows what she's doing? I honestly don't think so. I want to believe that at the end of this year, people will feel better off. But the premise that I'm getting is that people aren't better off. And yes, they haven't done a full year in power yet. And like I said with the healthcare system, because I did say that I would wait to the end of the year to see what the healthcare system would like. I will still wait to see how things have done, because regardless of how you feel about Labour, and I'm very critical as you guys are in the chat, we also do have to wait and see how things turn out as well. We've got to see at least the halfway point, I know, like, we want the changes right away, but they are doing some good things, but there is a lot of things, we're rightly so, that we are critical of. And was pointed out, like, the fact that they are targeting the most disabled and vulnerable people in society is outrageous. It is. It shouldn't be that way. So guys, I'm done now. Will be back in literally 6 hours time for the Snowflake Watch. So I'm going to get away from my computer and get some fresh air and whatnot. I want to thank you guys who have been with me since the start of this. I do apologise for some reason the titles and that were not updated for some weird reason, but I will address that. But thank you guys all for coming along. Thank you guys for watching Prime Minister's Questions. Thank you guys for watching the Spring Statement with me, and thank you for listening to some of the questions as well. Take care whatever the rest of your days are, and I will catch you guys all a bit later. But just before I head out, please hit that like button, share this across social media, subscribe if you haven't already, join the YouTube membership for as little as 99B, check out the Rumble and Patreon for exclusive content on those platforms, and I will catch you all very, very soon.